NL playoff teams seem to be set, although seeding is still a little bit up in the air. Dash is going to tell you what to expect coming up.
Welcome to the Steel City. Is everybody ready to go? Let's proclaim the greatest radio show.
Welcome, fans, to another episode of The Spread. Sitting next to this dude who thinks he knows everything about baseball, Jay Dash.
I never said that.
I believe you said it on multiple occasions.
I just said I know more than you.
Well, that's kind of obvious when it comes to baseball, but anything else in the world, you're dead wrong.
I think you're a little dead wrong here.
No.
But yeah, the playoff teams are pretty much set. We'll have to see how it ends up to see the seeding. But the one obvious team for a while now has been the St. Louis Cardinals. Why is that funny?
Because it's not the Pirates.
Well, I mean, they've been obvious for a while now, too. But look, the St. Louis Cardinals, it's all about their pitching. They let up the least amount of runs in the NL with 449. They have the best record in the NL at 88-52.
Best record in baseball, don't they?
Yeah, please believe. And they dealt with a lot of injuries this season. They lost Adam Wainwright early. Matt Holliday went down twice with long DL stints. They lost Randall Grichuk recently for a while. Lance Lynn missed a couple starts with an injury. So they've dealt with a lot of problems, but they've been able to maintain all season long.
If there was a baseball card made of a St. Louis Cardinal this year, that player got hurt, so you might as well just rip it in half.
Seems like it.
And I heard Grichuk is playing with a bummed arm still, and they told him in the outfield not to try to make deep throws and he hit the cutoff man or flip it to the other outfielder if he has to. But they need his bat in the lineup so bad they brought him back.
Yeah, this is a young guy, obviously his rookie season, and he's having a great year so far. He's shown pretty nice power, and another guy that's a rookie is Stephen Piscotty, and he's having a good year so far as well. So they got some young guys out there helping them as well. They brought over Brandon Moss at the deadline to help them, some relievers to go along with Trevor Rosenthal in the bullpen. And like I said, they've been able to maintain all season long, and it's been pretty clear for a while now that they were going to be in the playoffs. It's still a possibility, though. The Pittsburgh Pirates could catch them. They're only 4.5 back right now. They're sitting at 83-56, and to start the season, they've had one of the best pitching staffs in baseball up until the All-Star break, at least. I mean, you had Garrett Cole pitching like an ace. Francisco Liriano was pitching like a number one type pitcher, not necessarily an ace. And AJ Burnett, the same thing, pitching nearly ace status. So they had three dominant pitchers at the beginning of the season. And their offense was, I wouldn't say bad. They were good for the first half of the season. I mean, they were still in the top 6 teams in the National League in runs scored at that point. But then the pitching sort of fell apart after the All-Star break. You remember A.J. Burnett had some terrible starts, and then he went on the DL. And really, it was the offense that really picked them up. They started scoring a lot more runs, and in fact, they're one of the top 5 teams right now in runs scored in the NL. The New York Mets have actually overtaken them as one of the top teams.
Well, the heart and soul's back. A.J. pitched pretty well in his start on Thursday night.
Yeah, so the things are looking good for their starting rotation right now, too. I mean, you got Garrett Cole, obviously, still. Francisco Liriano is still pitching well. J.A. Happ has actually been pitching like the best pitcher on this staff since they brought him over from Seattle at the deadline. They made a couple deadline moves. They brought over Aramis Ramirez. He's helped the offense, like I was saying, who picked it up. And the addition of A.J. Burnett to this starting rotation, that gives them 4 good pitchers. And if Burnett can keep it up here, I'd expect him to move back into the number 3 role at least. And I see Cole, Liriano, and Burnett being the 1, 2, 3 in the playoffs, with J. Happ actually maybe getting a couple starts here and there as well.
Definitely, if AJ can keep it up, he played well. JA's playing well. It seems like if you have those initials in either order, you're a good pitcher for the Pirates.
Yeah, and I mean, their bullpen has been great this season too. Obviously, Melanson, Watson, another guy they brought over at the deadline was Soria. That made a great 7th, 8th, and 9th inning combo. And they also have Jared Hughes for the 6th inning if needed. So it looks like maybe their pitching staff is rounding back into form from earlier in the season. And their offense has been great to this point this season, but they've had their questions too. I mean, they lost Harrison for a while, they lost Mercer for a while. It took them a little while to find out Gung was actually as good as he is. Pedro Alvarez had his down moments, and he's not been great on the field, so he's been
most
in and out of
since
the lineup.
Ryan Howard, and it was either 09 or 06. I can't remember which one.
Oh, I believe it definitely, but I'd still like to see them keep him in the lineup. He's their best power hitter, no matter what he does defensively. But they've had their questions offensively too, like I was saying, with Gregory Polanco had not necessarily a slow start to the season. He had a decent first month, but then he really cooled off for a couple months and then got hot. So they had questions too, but right now it looks like they're rounding into form, although they do struggle against the NL Central. And they probably will be playing the Chicago Cubs in the wild card game if they
Cardinals.
can't. Yeah, and then the Cardinals. It would be Cubs and then Cardinals. We're going to figure out real quick what the NL Central, who the representative is for the NL Central.
The Pirates basically have a 1-2 and a 3A and 3B starter, so that's good. Like you said, the offense is rounded into form. But that NL Central thing, man, and I know it's been more against the Brewers and the Cardinals. Yeah,
And the
you're going to
Reds.
struggle against the Cardinals because they're the best freaking team in baseball.
Well, actually,
so, yeah.
they're 500 with the Cardinals.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, you're not going to go 10 and whatever. You know, you're not going to sweep the Cardinals in a season series. But the scary part of having to play two NL Central teams in the playoffs to even get to the World Series, they got to pick it up. They got to figure out a way to play better against their division. And they're going to get Jake Arrieta with the Cubs, most likely. I still think so, unless something happens. And then God knows who the Cardinals are going to throw at him. They could freaking sign 47, put him out there, and somehow he'd be doing good. It doesn't matter. The Cardinals just magically win games. I think Bill Belichick's hanging out
like
there.
I was saying, there's still a small chance that Pittsburgh could overtake the Cardinals, and then it would be the Cardinals and the Cubs in the one-game wild card. But if it is how it turns out now, Pittsburgh would probably go with Garrett Cole, but there's a lot of people questioning that now and saying Liriano, because if you do face the Cubs, Liriano is a better matchup against Anthony Rizzo, the lefty-on-lefty matchup, and that's really who you want to shut down in Chicago. And a lot of people are saying J.A. Happ, too, because he's been pitching the best out of the rotation. Me, personally, I look at a franchise like the San Francisco Giants and what they do, and they know, pitch your best pitcher in the one-game wild card.
Yep.
And I'd follow that rule. I'd still pitch Garrett Cole. Now, listen, if he falls apart here at the end of the season and isn't pitching well, I don't have a problem with going with Liriano or J.A. Happ in that case.
I say you got to go either Cole or Liriano. I know Happ's been pitching well, and last year Volquez was pitching the best in the lineup, and you can't blame it all on him, but you put a stud pitcher out there in a game. Not necessarily, I'm not worrying about who's pitching the best. Liriano and Cole both have that pedigree of an ace pitcher. Cole especially right now. Liriano, I mean, you've said it a bunch. He's one of the hardest pitchers to hit in the league because he never throws a freaking ball in the strike zone. So, I mean, you got to go with one of those two guys. I know Happ's pitching well, but he hasn't pitched well enough for long enough for me to trust him in that game.
And then there's
Liriano and Cole have been doing it for a while for the Pirates.
Now, the Chicago Cubs, like you mentioned, they're probably going to pitch Arrieta, and there was questions of whether or not they should go with Lester or Arrieta for a while until Arrieta started completely dominating. I mean, he just threw a no-hitter recently as well. But, I mean, people were saying Lester because the Pittsburgh Pirates were having a little bit of trouble earlier in the season hitting lefties, and they turned that around a little bit now because they beefed up their lineup at the deadline and whatnot. So it's not as bad against lefties now. And listen, Arrieta is a true ace, and you have to go with him in this NL wildcard game, just like we were saying with the Pittsburgh Pirates. But Chicago is a team that is very young offensively, and a lot of people thought would fall off at some point this season.
Included.
But listen, they do have a pretty good pitching staff, and it's not like their pitching staff is very young. You have the ace in Arrieta, like we were saying. Lester is obviously a number one type pitcher as well. And you also have Jason Hamill and Kyle Hendricks, who have been pretty good pitchers for Chicago this season. And let's not forget they brought in Dan Herron at the deadline to help bolster that rotation. So they have a pretty good 1 through 5. I mean, you can't completely trust Hamill, Hendricks, or Herron in the playoffs, but Arrieta and Lester are a great 1-2. And offensively, like I was saying, they were a young team. Obviously, they have the leader in Anthony Rizzo, one of the best first basemen in baseball. But they had a rookie in Chris Bryant, a rookie in Addison Russell. Jorge Soler is coming into pretty much his first full season as well. Now, he is on a DL right now. They're hoping to get him back. But Chris Bryant has had a great season. Let's not forget Kyle Schwarber they called up. This guy, he has some work to do to be a good catcher, but he looks like an even better hitter than Chris Bryant is. This guy is going to be a beast one day. Their offense is very young, but they're all still producing right now, especially Chris Bryant. It looks like he is going to end up winning Rookie of the Year, I would have to believe.
Yeah.
But if Kyle Schwarber was called up earlier this year than he was, I mean, he'd have a serious chance of being Rookie of the Year as well.
Gung gets none. No love. Sorry, Gung.
So really, everybody thought this team was going to fall off at one point, and they did the complete opposite. They went on a tear after the All-Star break, and really no one has won more games than them since the All-Star break. And they played the San Francisco Giants, who were still in it at one point, the defending champions, and they swept them in 4 games in August, and that really put them in the spot to win this final wild card spot. And then they played the San Francisco Giants again later in the month, and they actually went 1-2 versus them, but 5-2 in their last 7 games against the Giants. That's kind of what's separating them now. I mean, they still have a much bigger lead than that over the Giants. The Giants have been playing bad baseball recently, and it looks like they're done, and that's why this playoff picture is starting to round into form.
Giants, man. I thought for a moment they were going to make it. I was scared Bumgarner was going to come through and just stomp the Pirates again.
Yeah, I mean, they still have Bumgarner, who has been great this season, and their offense has been great, too. I mean, they did get rid of Pablo Sandoval before the season began, but they also called up Matt Duffy for his rookie season, and this guy is another possible Rookie of the Year. And Buster Posey's having a great season as well. Joe Panik's having a great season for him. Brandon Belt hasn't been bad for him this season. Like you said, they have the ace pitcher in Bumgarner. And, I mean, they brought over Mike Leake at the deadline to round out their pitching staff. I really thought the Giants were going to be able to hang in there with the Los Angeles Dodgers for this division, but they really fell out of the division race and have fell out of the wild card race as well.
Bye-bye, Giants. Not your year.
And speaking of the Los Angeles Dodgers, they've actually been playing great baseball recently, and they're actually catching up to the Pittsburgh Pirates for the second best record in the National League. Of course, they have the great 1-2 combo of Clayton Kershaw and Zach Greinke. Zach Greinke having a Cy Young type season for him. Not to mention, Brett Anderson has pitched well for him this season, and at the deadline, they brought in Matt Latos and Alex Wood to round out their rotation, so they have a good 1 through 5 as well, but I'm sure they're going to want to pitch Clayton Kershaw and Greinke as much as possible in the playoffs, and that's going to give them the best chance to win. I mean, their offense has been decent this season. It's not been one of the best offenses in the National League, but they got a big start to the season from their rookie center fielder Jock Peterson. He had a great start to the season, but after the All-Star break, he really fell off. It looks like he's starting to pick it up a little bit recently.
He got a little tired.
But yeah, that was one reason they stayed in it early in the season, because Yasiel Puig has missed a lot of time this season as well, and he hasn't lived up to expectations this season.
He missed time last year too, didn't he?
I think this was the first year he actually went on the DL. He might have missed some games here and there that didn't cost him a full 15 days, so they left him on the 25-man roster at that point. But I believe this year was the first time he hit the DL, and he's been on the DL a lot of the season, actually, and he was supposed to really take a step forward this season.
Just dug himself a trench.
I did read reports recently that said he may stay on the DL until the playoffs start. So he may be done for the season, but come back for the playoffs. But really, their best hitter, like always, has been Adrian Gonzalez. This guy is Mr. Consistent for the LA Dodgers, obviously. He's hitting 276 this season with 26 home runs. So this is their leader offensively. Howie Kendrick has had a great season for him, but he's been on a DL for a while. He should come back in about 2 weeks, but they had to chase Utley at the deadline to fill in for there. They called up Corey Seager, who looks great right now. This was one of, if not the top prospect in baseball at this point. Called him up, and he looks like he's going to be a huge addition down the stretch here. And I mean, he's already paid off for him, and he's going to help in the playoffs as well. They also traded for Jose Peraza, the young second baseman we talked about in a prospect check this season from the Atlanta Braves. I was pretty surprised that they...
Is that where young Cuba went? Hector Oliveira?
Yeah, he ended up going there for Peraza. I think the Dodgers made out on this deal. And like I said, the Dodgers have a ton of money. So at the deadline, what they do is they take a lot of players that cost too much for other teams and get other players they want in return to help them out now and in the future. It's almost like cheating the system a little bit.
Hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
So yeah, the Los Angeles Dodgers, they look pretty good right now. It's pretty much guaranteed they're going to win their division. I mean, through 139 games, they're 8.5 games up. It's a little too late for the San Francisco Giants to come back and make a run at this division.
What if there was an earthquake and LA just floated off to sea?
I guess that's a possibility. San Francisco better watch out, though.
Well, it's only going to be down by LA. San Francisco will be okay.
All right, well, there you go.
See? San Fran, you're going to win the division.
Well, how about the New York Mets, man? This team really had no offense to begin the season. They lost David Wright early, who's supposed to be their leader and one of their best hitters. They lost a great catcher in Travis d'Arnaud for a while, who I really like offensively. But the reason they stayed in the race with the Washington Nationals, who was everybody's favorite to
huge
go to the World Series. Yeah, again, another disappointing season from the Washington Nationals. It's starting to become a trend with them.
Something from Washington disappointed us. Huh. Shocking.
But the New York Mets, I mean, what kept them in this was this young, good pitching staff they have. Obviously, Matt Harvey was their ace coming into the season, although
Jake smoked by the Pirates.
He actually got smoked recently again too, and they've actually skipped his past start because of it. They want to give him some time off because they do want him in the playoffs. Well, listen, this whole pitching staff's young, so they're starting to skip Noah Syndergaard starts too, keep him ready for the playoffs. I don't think they're going to do it with DeGrom, too. He's still a young guy, but he's a little bit older than Noah Syndergaard, and he wasn't hurt like Matt Harvey was. So I see him pitching. Well, they might skip a start. Who knows? But DeGrom's actually outpitched Matt Harvey this season by far. He is actually a potential Cy Young candidate as well. But with DeGrom, Matt Harvey, and Noah Syndergaard, I mean, there's a great 1-2-3. Bartolo Colon has actually turned it around again, and he's pitching well for the
fat
at the end of the season for the second straight year. Jonathan Neese is pitching in this rotation right now. I don't expect him to make a start in the playoffs necessarily, but I like what they have in their pitching staff here, and I think they can challenge these other teams in the playoffs. And then you look offensively, man. David Wright is back healthy now. He's playing well. And while he was out, they brought in Uribe as well, and he's been a good player for him as well. But Wright came back, and he's hitting very well. d'Arnaud has come back, and again, he looks like one of the best hitting catchers in baseball. I say this again and again. Jim, you hear the name d'Arnaud and think he's a bum because of Chase d'Arnaud, but Travis d'Arnaud is the man. And
whole family's bums.
The only problem he's had throughout his entire minor league career and now in the bigs is he cannot stay healthy. If this guy can start to stay healthy, like the Pittsburgh Pirates with Cervelli, you see he stays healthy and he can produce. Well, Travis d'Arnaud is way more of a power hitter than Francisco Cervelli is. Now, he's not as good as a defensive catcher necessarily, but Travis d'Arnaud, one of the best offensive catchers in baseball when healthy. So he's back. Wright's back. What did they do at the deadline? They went out and got Yoenis Cespedes. They almost got Carlos Gomez. Everyone thought they had him, and he really hasn't been playing that well for Houston since going to them. Instead, they turn around and go get Yoenis Cespedes.
He's a beast right now.
This guy is a monster. Over 30 home runs already, and he is really the leader of this offense. And if you look, man, they scored 593 runs. They jumped over everyone in the NL Central, obviously. And the only teams in the NL West with more runs than them is the Arizona Diamondbacks and Colorado Rockies. So
Goldschmidt in Colorado. So there you go.
yeah, well, Arizona's a very nice hitter's ballpark as well. But they do have a decent offense out there. But the New York Mets, man, they went from having one of the worst offenses in baseball the first half of the season to now having one of the best offenses in baseball. And if they made the playoffs by the numbers of runs scored, they would probably be the best offense in the National League playoff picture.
Get it. Cespedes is beast. I told you we should have traded for him.
But like I was saying, everyone thought it was the Washington Nationals most of the season. Bryce Harper's having a once-in-a-lifetime type season.
Is he still the MVP even if they don't make the playoffs?
I'd like people to get their teams to the playoffs to win MVP, so I don't know. It's hard to say. I would say if the Pirates overtook the Cardinals, maybe Andrew McCutchen, if the Cubs would somehow make a huge run and overtake the Cardinals, I don't think that's going to happen. Anthony Rizzo should get it then. You know what I mean? I want to see someone that gets their team to the playoffs win that MVP. But it's hard to argue against Bryce Harper as well just because of the excellent season he had. And if you look, they actually have more runs than the Mets. They have 615 runs scored. And coming into the season, it was all about this Washington Nationals pitching staff and how great they were going to be this year. They brought over Max Scherzer, obviously. They had Steven Strasburg still, Doug Fister, Jordan Zimmerman. I mean, this pitching staff was supposed to be beasts this year. And while they've been good, I mean, Max Scherzer has been excellent, obviously. But, I mean, he's had some down games recently, don't get me wrong. But he's still a great pitcher. But, I mean, they haven't lived up to expectations necessarily. The Cubs pitching staff has been better. The Pirates pitching staff has been better. Obviously, the Cardinals, who, with Carlos Martinez, a young pitcher, Michael Wacha, a young pitcher, Lance Lynn, a somewhat young pitcher, Jaime Garcia having an excellent season. I mean, they have pitchers nonstop. But the Nationals just have been a letdown all around this season, although you can't really say it's on the offense because they have been one of, if not the best offense in the National League this season when you're looking at runs scored, because they're only a couple runs behind the Diamondbacks and Rockies, and I don't even consider them the best offenses in baseball because of where they play.
Hating. Just hating.
So that's it. But I would say if the playoff picture ended up something like this, the New York Mets would probably have the best offense in the playoffs, while the St. Louis Cardinals would have the best pitching staff. But the most well-rounded, I would say, it would either have to go to the New York Mets or the Pittsburgh Pirates in my mind.
There it is. Got to give it to the Pirates.
No, listen, the Pirates have one of the better offenses, and they have one of the better pitching staffs. The St. Louis Cardinals offense, I mean, they get it done when they need to at times, but they're still not one of the best offenses in this playoff picture. And if you ask me, they're the worst team in this playoff picture offensively. The Chicago Cubs are actually... I should have mentioned them too. Maybe it's the Chicago Cubs. Their offense has really come along recently. They could take over the Pittsburgh Pirates in runs scored this season very soon because they've been scoring a ton of runs. And like I said, they got Arrieta the ace, they got Lester, and their 1 through 5 rounds out pretty well. So, I mean, I think there's more teams that are consistently good 1 through 25 on the 25-man roster than the St. Louis Cardinals are. That doesn't mean the St. Louis Cardinals aren't the favorite because their pitching staff is levels above everybody else, and pitching wins championships. I say it all the time. But the more rounded teams, I would have to say, are the Cubs, the Pirates, and the Mets. And I'd look out for those 3 teams in the playoffs.
What if the Mets and the Yankees make it?
I'd hate it.
I'd love it. Go A-Rod. By the way, I was right. A-Rod hit 30 home runs.
I'm going to hear this in every baseball segment.
You better believe it. You're lucky I didn't start screaming it as soon as the segment started. I told you my boy would get to 30. You denied me.
You got lucky, man.
Uh-huh. I got lucky.
You did.
We'll see. 26 next year.
If you throw a bunch of crap, it's bound to hit something.
Mm-hmm. Hit you right in the face with my sports knowledge. But on that note, we're going to wrap it up because I don't think you can handle me being right too much more. Your head might explode. Fans, if you like listening to me be right and dash be wrong, you can follow us on Twitter at bet_the_spread. You can follow me on Twitter at betjimthewin. Check us out on Facebook at facebook.com. We just uploaded our first segment to iTunes, so we're going to try to put some on there so you can check out there. Keep coming back to the YouTube channel. Keep clicking subscribe and keep loving baseball.